Imagine waking up in a world where evolution has stopped playing by the rules. Where animals are born with eyes in the wrong place, limbs that twist like living sculptures, or bodies so deformed that even scientists hesitate before calling them natural. Now imagine this. A frog with a fully functioning arm growing out of its back. A shark born with two heads, both snapping in different directions. And a deer whose antlers curl inward, piercing its own skull like nature turned against itself. These are not scenes from a horror movie. These are real mutations, unsettling reminders that evolution is a chaotic artist, sometimes painting masterpieces, and sometimes creating absolute nightmares. But what if I told you that many of these disturbing mutations aren't accidents but evolution experimenting in real time? Today, we're diving into the most shocking, bizarre, and downright disturbing animal mutations ever recorded. From parasites that hijack developing limbs to genetic errors that create animals nature never intended to exist. And the biggest question is, why does evolution allow such monstrosities to happen? Because behind every strange mutation is a story, a survival trial, an ancient parasite, or a twist of DNA that reveals just how fragile and unpredictable life truly is. Before we begin, a warning. Some of these creatures may change how you think about nature forever. But if you're ready, let's descend into the weirdest corners of biology and uncover the disturbing truth behind evolution's most shocking mistakes. Welcome to Weird Animal Evolution. Let's begin with one of the most disturbing and misunderstood anomal mutations ever documented. The multi-limbed frog outbreaks that terrified biologists in the late 1990s. Imagine walking beside a quiet lake and seeing frogs with 8 legs, others with legs growing from their spines, or a single limb split into 2, like a branching tree. Some couldn't hop, others walked in circles. Many didn't survive. But what caused this grotesque explosion of mutations? These frogs were mostly northern leopard frogs, common across North America. Normally elegant, agile hunters, but during these outbreaks, they transformed into something else, entirely nature's glitch. Most of these frogs were only a few months old, living in shallow freshwater ponds, rich with insects and algae. They shared their ecosystem with snails, fish, and unfortunately one of evolution's strangest villains. Scientists eventually uncovered the culprit. A tiny parasite called Ribeiroia ondatrae, a flatworm with a truly horrifying life cycle. Here's where things get disturbing. During the tadpole stage, when frog limbs are still forming, the parasite burrows into the developing limb buds. It doesn't kill the tadpole. Instead, it rewires the body plan, forcing new limbs to sprout in unnatural places. Why? Because a deformed frog is easier prey for birds. And birds are exactly where the parasite wants to end up to complete its life cycle. This means those extra limbs, those shocking growths, were not accidents. They were part of a parasite's evolutionary strategy. Think about that for a moment. A microscopic organism can re-engineer a vertebrate's body, twisting bones and muscles into something unrecognizable, all for its own survival. What else in nature has that kind of power? Now let's plunge deeper into the ocean, where evolution gets even stranger. Fishermen and researchers have documented dozens of sharks born with 2 heads, a mutation called dicephaly. These embryos often belong to species like the blue shark or cat shark, both known for producing large litters. The more embryos there are, the greater the chance that something in the developmental process goes wrong. But here's the unsettling part. Some dicephalic sharks have both heads fully developed, each with its own brain, gills, and mouth. 2 predators trapped in one body. Imagine how confusing their senses must be. What happens if one head wants to turn left while the other tries to swim right? Scientists still don't know. Very few of these sharks survive long after birth. So what causes this nightmare mutation? Some cases come from environmental stress, others from genetic errors, and some may be linked to sharks' complex reproductive anatomy. But the larger mystery is this. If such a mutation appears in many species and across many oceans, is it just random chance, or something deeper about vertebrate development? Because here's the part scientists still can't fully explain. Why does dicephaly show up so consistently across animals, from snakes to turtles to sharks, despite millions of years of evolutionary distance? What shared biological weakness is hiding inside all vertebrates? Moving back onto land, let's step into a quiet winter forest. Among the most haunting natural mutations is the phenomenon of corkscrew antlers. Some deer develop antlers that spiral inward, curving into their own skulls. This disturbing condition often results from hormonal imbalances, injuries during early antler growth, or rare genetic mutations. Unlike frogs or sharks, this mutation doesn't come from parasites or embryonic glitches. It comes from the very trait that makes male deer powerful. Antlers are supposed to be symbols of dominance, but when evolution misfires, they become lethal nature, turning its own weapons against the animal. What does this say about evolution's priorities? Strength, beauty, or just whatever works long enough for the genes to be passed on? And here's what shocked researchers most of all. In some populations, these harmful mutations appear generation after generation, suggesting they might not be accidents at all but side effects of sexual selection pushing antlers to grow larger, heavier, and more complex. Evolution gives and evolution takes away. Across all these cases, frogs, sharks, deer, thought pattern is clear. Evolution is not careful. It's not gentle. It's not even particularly wise. It's experimental, chaotic, opportunistic, and every so often, the process produces something shocking. Nature is full of creatures shaped by genetic roll of dice moments, and if conditions are right, even the disturbing ones can survive long enough to make an imprint on the evolutionary story. But just how far can evolution push a body before it breaks? And which of these disturbing mutations might actually become the blueprint for a future species? To uncover that, we need to look at the rarest and most extreme mutations of all creatures that almost feel impossible. So, after witnessing these disturbing mutations, frogs twisted by parasites, sharks split into two minds, and deer turned into victims of their own antlers, what can we learn about evolution itself? Because here's the surprising truth. These creatures aren't glitches in the system. They are the system. Frogs growing extra legs. That was evolution being hijacked by a parasite playing 4D biological chess. Two-headed sharks. Proof that even the most ancient predators can suffer from a single misplaced genetic instruction. Deer with self-piercing antlers. A harsh reminder that when natural selection pushes beauty or strength to extremes, the result can be tragic. Every one of these mutations tells a story of how fragile the blueprint of life really is. DNA is powerful, but it's not perfect. It misfires, it loops, repeats. Sometimes it creates a masterpiece. Sometimes a monster. We tend to imagine evolution as a slow, wise sculptor carving life into perfection. But mutations show us the truth. Evolution is a chaotic gambler, testing variations with no guarantee of success. Some mutations become legendary adaptations. Feathers, eyes, echolocation. Others become dead-end creatures that struggle, suffer, or never survive long enough to pass their genes on. But the presence of these disturbing forms, no matter how rare, reminds us that evolution isn't goal-oriented. It doesn't know where it's heading. It explores every possibility, even the terrifying ones. What if the next great evolutionary innovation looks terrifying at first? What if some of today's disturbing mutations could one day become normal features in a future species? It's happened before. The first creatures with jaws. They must have looked horrifying compared to their jawless ancestors. The first animals with armor plates, or venom, or tusks. Mutations, shocking ones that changed everything. So which current mutation could be the seed of something extraordinary? When we look at a two-headed shark or a frog with tangled limbs, we're seeing evolution's experiments, most of which will fail. But failure is part of the process. Without weirdness, without mistakes, without the disturbing edges of biology, the tree of life wouldn't branch. It wouldn't grow. It wouldn't innovate. Mutations are evolution's raw material. Beautiful or horrifying, they are the sparks that ignite change. The real question isn't why these disturbing mutations happen. It's what they might become if given enough time. And that's what makes studying them so thrilling and so unsettling. So let me ask you, which mutation disturbed you the most, and which one do you think has the potential to reshape a species in the future? Could a double-headed predator ever rule an ecosystem? Could a parasite-driven mutation accidentally create a new survival strategy? What if evolution's next masterpiece begins as one of these biological nightmares? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because your answer might be wilder than the creatures themselves. If you love uncovering evolution's strangest secrets, don't forget to like, subscribe to Weird Animal Evolution, and hit the bell, because the next creature we're covering is even stranger than this one.